like as everybody out there. But hey, my name is Aaron Swoboda, and I am, well, in the program, this whole session is actually on increasing student engagement with Google Apps. And in my bio, I'm listed as the secondary instructional coach for Kearney Public Schools, and since the program being put together in a different position, and I am the content director for Google Apps training for a company called Synergize that specializes in Google Apps training. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. But I'm also a Google certified teacher and authorized Google education trainer. Got two friends joining me today. One is Mickey Mueller from Norfolk Public Schools in Norfolk, Nebraska, and another is Sean Williams from Portland, Oregon, and we're going to, hopefully they will be chiming in and bugging me with some questions that you guys might have, or questions that they have around this idea of engagement. So, like I said, they will be they're a part of this conversation. So just to be sure, we got the slide deck up right now, guys. Is that right?
Yep.
Did I get that right? All right, cool. So there's my contact information. At any point you want to reach out to me, my Google+, my Twitter, and my blog is on the right side there, and who I am on the left. But let's get to the down and dirty. If you have any questions throughout this whole thing, we want it to be interactive. So I've got a Google Doc right here. Give you some time to jot that down, but you'll see it at the top of each slide as well. But that is, by the way, after the goo.gl, after the slash is another L. It's not a number 1, so don't let that throw you. Or if you're on Twitter, you can use the hashtag BodhiEDU, BODHI-EDU, and just ask any questions you have about this presentation. Make this as interactive as we can. This hopefully should be a fun time. So I have a story that I want to tell, first of all, about the school district I just left and when we went one-to-one. And we decided to go one-to-one with Chromebooks, and in order to educate the community as they came in, I set up shop in the cafeteria during parent-teacher conferences and during our open house, so people could come and see what the Chromebooks were like and what are we going to be doing with this, and ask me any questions. I was, kind of the go-to guy for this this endeavor. And one gentleman came to me and was rather confrontational. He said, "I've read all the studies," which I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, you read all the studies." But anyway, so I've read all the studies say that technology does nothing. Going one-to-one does nothing to increase student achievement. And I said, "You're absolutely right." And he was like floored. He stopped. He kind of backed up a little bit. I said, "You're absolutely right. I've seen the same things." I said, "Just putting a computing device, anything, into a student's hand does not do anything to increase student achievement on its own." So I said, that's why we are going to be working with our teachers on instructional strategies, and if you use the technology along with powerful instructional strategies, then things should, get even bigger and better. So it's all about the pedagogy, it's all about the practice, and not about a device. And he was kind of taken aback, and we had kind of a big gathering. It was like a schoolyard fight or something, but that really just struck me, is that all the professional development I could give my teachers, on how a Chromebook works or how Google Apps works, yeah, that's needed, but it's more important to say, we know that formative assessment helps kids in student achievement, so how can we use Google Apps and a Chromebook for formative assessment? We know that engagement increases student learning, so how can we use Google Apps and Chromebooks for increasing student engagement? So I always try to put that little pedagogical bent on why to use technology when sometimes I go to sessions and people are just saying, here's a really cool thing you can do with a Google Doc. So that was just a quick little story about our journey on one-to-one. So first of all, why am I talking about engagement? Well, there are two things. John Hattie wrote a book called Visible Learning, and then he wrote a much thinner book called Visible Learning for Teachers, because if you know this book, Visible Learning, it's a meta-analysis of meta-analysis. That's just tough to say. But he looked over thousands of studies about, and at the crux of it is just what really works in the classroom. And what he found is that anything a teacher does has an impact on the classroom. He said just some things work better than others. Now, one of those was student engagement, and it had an effect size of 0.48. If you're one of those data nerds like some people, like my former boss, had effect size of 0.48, and I guess that's important to say because it's that anything over a 0.4 is considered significant. So increasing student engagement has a pretty good impact on student learning. And really, when you think about it, as we get into how we're going to define engagement a little bit, it's probably one of the easiest things you can do with a teacher to get more bang for the buck in the classroom. Another reason why I latched on to engagement, our district went through a thing called the Adolescent Literacy Project. Dr. Kevin Feldman was kind of heading that one up, and he mentioned this report here with the IES and the U.S. Department of Education in 2008. They listed 5 strategies to increase adolescent literacy, or to improve adolescent literacy, and one of those was engagement, increased student engagement. And so that was a big focus in my school district for the last couple years, and is still ongoing even after I am gone. But it was really important, again, to talk about what engagement is. And some people would say that engagement is kids being like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I came to school today. I'm so glad I'm in this class. I'm so glad that, you know, wow, this is the most entertaining thing I've ever been. It reminded me of my high school chemistry class, where I was so glad to be in that class every day because I totally dug Mr. Kirkwright, but I didn't get chemistry for anything. I was a C student at best, and that's when I said, thank God for lab partners, because chemistry was not my thing. And when looking back, I remember just a lot still. He was very entertaining and very energetic, and he loved what he did. But I don't remember how much beyond that lab was I involved in the learning, other than just listening to him and watching him write stuff down. So at our district, and within this Adolescent Literacy Project, we defined engagement as students speaking, writing, creating, and doing. And I want to back up just for a second, because another big geek out moment for myself is I'm a big Madeline Hunter fan. And again, Madeline Hunter back in the 70s went and researched classrooms and saw what makes good teachers good teachers. And one of those things is active participation. And that also is part of engagement. It's visible learning. It's kids doing stuff with the learning. So before this, I'm going to put them on the spot a little bit, but before we went live, Sean was asking the question, said, how do you measure engagement? And if you measure engagement by this visible, or if you use the definition of visible learning, of you can see kids talk, you can see them write, you can see them create, you can see them doing something. If they are sitting there just being polite, like Mickey and Sean right now look very polite, they look engaged, they're looking at the screen, it looks like all's hunky-dory, but they might be thinking about, oh man, I can't wait till this hangout is over, I can't wait until all this, what's going on in their brain. So getting them involved somehow so I can see them doing things. That's how I'm going to define engagement for the purpose of this. So I don't know if either one of you want to chime in on this, or...
I agree. Engagement is probably hard to measure, and some of the things that you have here on the screen, I think, would be good definitions of engagement. I would also add publishing could also lead to engagement. Publishing their work to a wider audience than just what's in the classroom. You know, so often our student work is given to just the teacher, and they don't share that work out. And we all know that if students know that they're doing that work for a broader audience, they'll tend to do a little bit better and to take a little bit more time in putting that work together. So I would maybe add publishing to that list of terms that you have there too.
That's interesting. That's a good point.
I don't know, do you guys know Rushton Hurley?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Rushton's the reason I became a GCT.
One of my favorite quotes of his was, we were talking, this was years ago, was that when kids are going to publish for the world, it's got to be good. When they've got to publish for their teacher, it's got to be good enough.
That's a good point as well. Yeah, I like that idea of publishing. Now you've got me thinking about stuff here. So so that's just some background. I'll just put this up here. I'm not going to hit the play because you know, you can go and watch Big Bang Theory all you want, but there's just type in a YouTube search of Raj and Penny in the hallway, and you're going to see this thing right here. Raj has a he's got something that he can't speak to women, and so Penny is really mad about Leonard and Sheldon doing something, and she's just yammering on and going, and Raj is having this conversation of his own in his head, and starting to go on and on and on. He's looking very engaged, looking her in the eye. At one point, he says, "Oh, she asked a question. I better nod." And so he nods. You know, how many times have we been in a classroom where it's been like that, where it's like you're just thinking about something else, and then you realize, oh, crud, they asked a question, so you know, you just nod, or you know, hope that your lab partner saves you. So go ahead and take a look at that a little bit later, because we want to dive into the meat of this and how can Google Apps help with engagement. Again, if we're going with this students creating, writing, speaking, and doing. And what we saw from the get-go is teachers really found this this idea of, okay, especially going one-to-one, all right, if I'm putting this with engagement, it made it really actually them more apt to use the devices in their classroom. And one of those was by using Google Drawings, probably one of the most underused app in the suite. I don't know if the two of you would agree, but this is kind of really stupid, but I found it really exciting that when I put a box, you know, just draw a shape on a Google drawing. So, for example, let me just go ahead and I'm going to present to you all right now, and yeah, that was awesome. Sean and Mickey, are you seeing my graphic organizer right now?
No, but I'm hearing some rocking music.
All right. So you're probably just seeing me, huh?
Yes, just you.
Well, anyway, you know, if I was to, as a kid, if I have this graphic organizer in front of me, if I click in one of those boxes, I can type directly into that box. So if you take your PowerPoint they're going to use, or your Google presentation, or whatever, and just walk them through, you know, with each slide or with each concept, so they can be taking notes, typing directly into these boxes. I was a horrible note taker. If somebody would have given me a graphic organizer like this, I probably would have been a better note taker in high school. So setting up a graphic organizer in Google Drawings, sharing that out with kids so that they can take notes in a more meaningful way. And also, I think a graphic organizer is great because then they see where you're going with all this. Because as a student, you have no idea where the teacher is going. It's like this, and some teachers want it to be this big journey that it's like, yay, look, we've reached this grand destination, but the kids are kind of, wouldn't it be nice to know where you're going? So I've had a bunch of teachers use the graphic organizers, love it that the kids are engaged in the classroom. So that's using Google Drawings. Another one we saw a lot of is just simple guided notes. We've done this before. You've created the document and printed it off, and kids are filling out things with a pencil. Well, guess what? Obviously, with Google Docs, you can still leave those blanks, and then share that out with kids. Either share it with them directly, or you can put it in Google Classroom, get it to them somehow, and they can be typing those guided notes in as you're giving your presentation, your lecture, what have you. But I think where I saw the coolest use of this was teachers giving, sharing their presentations with everybody. And kids would then to file, make a copy, in a Google presentation, and have their own editable copy of that presentation. And in that first box in the upper left-hand corner there, they would just use the presenter's notes to take notes in under that slide. So as the teacher's on slide 1, the kids on slide 1 taking their notes under there. Or over on to the right, they could use the insert comment feature, the little sticky note where they can highlight a word and type in what they're thinking about at that point. So leaving sticky notes all over the slides. But the bottom one is so simple, and it was absolutely genius. And here's a little bit of a story here. But first of all, let me tell you what this person did. They made their Google presentation for the day, and would then do file, make a copy. And so within seconds, you have a second copy, and she would call that the student copy. And in the student copy, she would go and take out keywords and just put in some blanks. She would then share out that student copy with everybody, and they would do their own file, make copy, or in Classroom you can make a copy for each student now, so that the kids had theirs, and as the slide changed on the screen, they would fill in the missing words. And so here's the story that is that was just awesome. I went into this teacher's classroom, 8 o'clock in the morning, his first period, freshman health class. How engaging does that sound? Okay, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I believe it might have been winter too. So, but anyway, and it was a crammed little room, and every kid in that classroom, except for one, every kid was eyes on the screen and the teacher, and they were following along. I was in the back of the classroom seeing what was going on on the screens, except for one kid. Only one kid was sitting there going. And it was the one kid who didn't have his Chromebook that day. Totally out to lunch, totally out. The others were, they're just going to town. And I was like, this is just genius. And of course, on a flip side of that is that the teacher presented from the back of the room, so she could see what was on the screens as well. Yeah. But again, kids were on every word that she was saying, and it's one of those things, if you give them something to do, then, that's worthwhile, they're going to do it. So, like I said, I just thought using Google Presentations for guided notes, I thought it was just awesome if you would share out a presentation so somebody could click along with you. That at least builds a little bit of engagement. But when you just take it that one step further, and as simple as just taking out key words, key vocabulary words, I mean, especially if you think you're in a science class, some of those big words that you're trying to learn, if you have to type them, then you're going to remember them a little bit more. So that's guided notes. Another, I can't remember where I got this from, but it's an awesome idea, and I gave it to one of my English teachers, and he just thought it worked really well. And it's a fishbowl activity where you split the class into two groups. You have an inside circle and the outside circle, and the inside circle is having a discussion about whatever the topic is with the teacher, and the outside circle cannot talk, but they all have their devices, and they're on a shared Google Doc, and as they're listening to the discussion, and as things come up, as questions like, oh man, they missed this important part, or they whatever, it's kind of like a back channel. They're typing in things on the Google Doc, and the teacher is looking on that Google Doc and can move the conversation forward. So suddenly you have everybody involved in the discussion rather than just one or two. And like I said, he thought it went really, really well. Again, there's obviously some classroom management things you have to deal with in something like this, but again, it's using Google Docs for that engagement. And then if you go to a conference, there are always back channels. There are always back channels. And I mean, let's go to the far right here and just a Google Doc for back channel, which, by the way, I don't know, Sean, does anybody typed any questions on our back channel Google Doc?
No, but we have a few people in there, so.
Sweet. All right. Well, at least they're in there, so that's one step. Maybe I'm just giving them everything they need and there are no questions. That's what I'm going to think. But anyway, you can have this back channel of just a Google Doc where if kids have a question, instead of raising their hand and interrupting the flow of things, type your question in there, and every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, stop, look through the questions, answer them, then move on. I mean, they say that you should stop every 10 minutes and take 2 minutes for processing. Every 5 minutes, 1 minute for processing. Don't just yammer on like I am right now, but I've got a clock staring at me. But other ways to do this, down the center here, Google Classroom. There's a stream on there that you could have discussions going on. Maybe an assignment is just today's lecture or today's whatever, and in that assignment, then kids can be commenting and asking questions. Teacher can stop again every so often, answer those questions, or have designate one person to answer them, or the kids can answer amongst themselves. That's one of the nice things about a back channel in a conference is that you ask a question, it's not going to be the presenter answering it for you. It's going to be the other smart person down the row from you. Another one in the upper left there is Google Groups. I think the question and answer forum would be an awesome tool to use for a lecture back channel. And again, you can set that up easily, safely, privately for your classroom so that it's just you and the kids. That again, any given lecture, kids can ask questions. They can answer them themselves, or the teacher can go back at the end of that lecture and answer the questions, or at different checks for understanding. So I'm going to throw it to Mickey and Sean here real quick of what you've heard so far. What's ringing your bell? Anything?
Well, I love the Google Classroom option. That is a tool that my teachers have embraced and have embraced hard. And even my non-techie teachers have really embraced Google Classroom. They love it. And so that the ability to do the comments in the stream would make an excellent back channel for a classroom. And if you're not into back channeling and you don't want to use something like Twitter or Today's Meet and you are using Google Classroom, that could be a great way to bring that into your classroom.
Thank you for agreeing with me. That's awesome. Sean, you're kind of on the administrative track, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of using the using a shared doc for a back channel. I think it's great. It takes a while to get students and teachers there, though, where they're using it constructively and stuff, and that's really hard for people to deal with. That, like, yeah, I know somebody said something silly, and it's gonna happen, and we're gonna get through this. This isn't the first time in history that somebody said something silly. That's a 7th grader.
Yeah.
But it's great. I have a couple teachers that have gotten into it, and it's good. It's having good results.
Right on. Very cool.
Nate just agreed with us. So Nate's on your side too, Aaron, that Google Drawing is not the unsung hero of apps.
I've become a huge fan of it. Huge fan. Hey, at least somebody typed into our back channel there. So I think this quote has been misattributed maybe to Benjamin Franklin. I think it was an ancient Chinese proverb maybe, but tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, and involve me and I learn. I mean, that's a really valuable thing, and I like the picture that's on here of a kid with his head in his hand looking kind of bored. Kids want to be involved. And you think about all those things that we really remember, we're really probably hands-on and doing something with that information. So again, anything from Twitter, Mickey? Anything that questions need to ask? Anything?
Nope, the Twitters are pretty quiet. So.
It's a Saturday afternoon.
It is. So. It is.
So I guess anything that, like I said, you guys would add as far as if we're taking this definition of student engagement in Google Apps, what types of things do you see from your teachers that you would like to see in your classrooms, kind of things?
Well, I think student choice can be huge in student engagement. If you allow your kids a choice, they'll tend to be more involved and engaged in what they're doing. So that choice could be, how they turn in a project. Instead of saying everybody has to do a Google slide deck, allow them to choose the tool that they communicate their learning with you. And that can lead to engagement in your classroom. So I say student choice would be a big piece of this.
Sweet. Sean, anything?
I'm coming up blank, to be honest. There's a lot of, you've already presented a lot of good options, and like Mickey just said, I mean, if you give them a choice of what to do, and you give them some engaging content to work with, you're
right on.
Yeah, you're way there already.
So, like I said, I think what I try to get through to people when I present at conferences is I don't necessarily always want to give them a how, but more of a why, or not really. I didn't want this today to be, here's how you use Google Drawings and draw a box, and that, I mean, go on YouTube and you'll find 8 zillion people who will show you how to use Google Drawings. But the minute that you make a graphic organizer and get it into your kids' hands, that they're taking notes along with you, and you might actually see, like I said, more bang for your educational buck. And like I said, those presentations that you create every day, because let's face it, we're still probably about 90% a stand and deliver type model, which is fine. Sometimes we need to learn that way, but the fact that you can just make a copy instantly and then just go take out key vocabulary words, and again, if the kid is just typing in that big word, then they're going to remember that big word.
Yes, it's exposure, right?
What's that?
If nothing else, it's exposure. They're getting in there and working with it again and again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's my time for today. Hope you got something out of it. Like I said, you can see us. Well, everybody's got their Twitter handle on their banner, but I'm going to hog the screen here for a second. But you can get me, remember, at Mr._Swoboda. If you go Aaron_Swoboda, you're going to get a Twitter feed of another of mine that you're just going to see me talking about my dogs and the Saints and things like that, which is just as enjoyable. But my education side is over there on the Mr. Swoboda. And then check me out on Google+, things like that. Thanks to Google for letting me talk to you today, and I guess we'll see you at another time. So, and thank you, Mickey and Sean, for helping me out.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking, Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Thanks for sharing, Aaron.
Here endeth the broadcast.